And a good Monday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We got a couple things to talk about, but the biggest headline that we do have all throughout the work week, a bit of a taste of spring. Yes, it is very premature. We are obviously still into the first half of the month of February, so we still should be expecting some form of a winter chill, maybe some substantial cool downs that could be on the near horizon, but no signs of that as of right now. First things first, let's go ahead and recap your month of February in the way of rainfall. And that's that. We have had no rainfall apparently recorded so far in the month of February. However, as we go back into last Wednesday, we were having a couple of sensor issues with our observation station at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So I think as you go back into around the 4th of February, which was last Wednesday, I do believe, we actually did record somewhere around about a ½ inch at the very least in terms of some rainfall, but that did not get taken into account on our records. So it remains to be seen if that issue will get resolved, but I would say that we are still well below the pace of where we should be, trying to get the average of around 4½ inches of rainfall, but maybe not quite as low as this graphic is indicating. So you can see we're in the very bottom of this dry category and starting to flirt with the very dry category. I would say we're probably somewhere in the upper half of the dry category, but still below where we should be at this point in February so far. We got an update to our drought monitor as of last Thursday. It didn't really change much. Most areas in central Georgia still remain in the orange shade, which is going to be the severe drought. Northernmost counties are remaining in a moderate drought, so not needing quite as much rain as areas farther down to the south do. And then we are still right in the near vicinity of 3 splotchy areas of an extreme drought. One of those present over to Columbus, back into East Alabama. The other down in southeast Georgia, and there's one up here behind the banner where you can see another orange area surrounding that red area, and some of the orange, the severe drought does clip portions of northern Hancock County, getting pretty close to the Lake Oconee area, right there on the triad of Putnam County, Hancock County, and getting up into Greene County. So your main headlines: above average high temperatures all week long. So finally, if you have been patiently waiting for a warm up after the frigid cold spell and the consecutive weekends of winter weather chances all the way up until this past weekend, of course, we do have some good news for you. We have some scattered rain chances throughout some days as we go throughout the work week, but we do have some higher rain chances surrounding specifically Saturday into Sunday, which may have some implications if you have any outdoor plans for Valentine's Day on Saturday. So we'll break down what we know as of now. And here's a look around the quad where we can start to see the cloud cover finally beginning to fizzle out. It does look like mostly sunny skies up here in downtown Macon, and we can start to see some of the cloud cover in Warner Robins clear on the right side of your screen because this camera is facing over to the west, so it does look like areas or the northern edge of this cloud deck is present kind of in northern Houston County right now and will eventually make its way down into the Georgia National Fairgrounds a little bit to the south of Warner Robins. It does look like we don't have much in the way of a breeze anymore. We had a slight breeze present this morning that did result in some feels-like temperatures that were a little bit lower than what the actual temperatures read, but overall the cloudy atmosphere has been something that we are thankful for this morning because it's kept the numbers a good deal warmer than, say, what they were over the course of this weekend. So here's a look at your current temperatures where we can see a good amount of widespread dark blue up to the north of us, of course, once again. And it does look like we have some form of a high pressure center right here on the Virginia and North Carolina state lines. You can see that clockwise rotation of the winds right here. So that has given us a bit of a wedge setup so far this morning. Not necessarily a textbook wedge, but when we can see high pressure to the northeast, and it will allow for some of those winds to funnel down just to the east and the southeast of the Appalachian Mountains, and that's why we do see a shade of some light blue over here in East Georgia as compared to the shades of green that you do see over in West Georgia and back over into states over to the west of us. So 50 in Macon, kind of an outlier compared to what you see at 59 in Jackson, 61 in Montgomery, 66 in Panama City, and then 68. That top temperature as of this Monday morning goes to Orlando and all the way over into southern Texas and Laredo. Looks like the south and the deep south of the United States finally getting back on track with a more seasonable stretch of weather, but still maybe even a little bit warm for this time of year. So like I mentioned, a bit of a wedge setup that looks like it has finally fallen apart, as now the winds have a bit more of a southeasterly or even a southwesterly component to them. But we can see 43 up in Athens, 47 in Augusta, 42 in Columbia, and a 40 all the way up into Greenville. As you make your way over to the west and the southwest, a lot more of a warmer air mass is settling in. 61 in Montgomery that we just saw compared to 57 in Columbus, and then transitioning out of that green color into more of a blue-green color up here in the Macon area, where the temperature sits at 50. So we're still holding on to our fair share of some mid and upper 40s, 46 in Sandersville, 46 in Swainsboro, 48 across Eatonton and all the way down to Wrightsville, 49 in Sparta, 49 in Gordon, and then you can see those numbers get a little bit warmer over to the west and the southwest. Very similar to how your temperature map looked as of this morning, where we saw some upper 30s over here to the east, but it was more so a story of the scattered low and mid 40s across the rest of central Georgia. So Cordele, 59 degrees. That's taking the cake for the warmest number that we do see right now. That's starting to get a little bit closer into the territory of some cities that you see over to the west, back into Alabama, are sitting at. Winds and wind gusts, they are relatively calm, maybe some winds that are up to around 6 to 7 miles per hour, but not really a definitive direction of these winds. I would say that they do, for the most part, have a southerly component to them. These wind arrows are mostly coming from south, blowing up to the north, but we can see over here in east central Georgia, they're more so coming out of the southeast and more so directly from the south as you go into our western half, maybe even a bit of a southwesterly wind that you can see back over into Alabama. So it feels like temperatures, if you're still stuck in the 40s, it might feel a little bit chillier, but overall, it does look like once we move to that 50-degree mark, we will start to see these numbers get warmer and warmer, and we're not forecasting feels like numbers say a couple degrees below what the actual numbers do say as of this afternoon. So satellite and radar picture hasn't been completely quiet over the course of this morning. We've actually had widespread cloud cover that I was alluding to first and foremost, but we actually had a few sprinkle showers as early as around 3 a.m. this morning up in areas like Putnam, Hancock, and Washington counties. And in fact, we continue to have a couple of sprinkles that are present down there here around Dooley County, Pulaski County, maybe a few stretching down into Wilcox County here at the 11 a.m. hour. So if you do keep the cloud cover in the forecast for the remainder of today, that's really looking like the only chance that you do have of seeing a very brief and a very light shower in nature. So light in nature that some of them may not even be popping up on our radar imagery. But across the state of Georgia, we don't see much in the way of cloud cover as you make your way up to the Atlanta area, North Georgia mountains. It's once you get down here into central Georgia that we do have a cluster of some cloud cover that may be trying to connect back over to the west into southern Alabama, over into eastern Mississippi. And you can also see a couple of scattered light showers over there to the west of the Montgomery area, west of I-65 that goes up the central portion of the state. So let's go and talk about the numbers, because that's the main thing that you will want to know over the course of the next couple of days. And I think they are going to once again be a sight for sore eyes, because yesterday afternoon it felt pretty incredible. 62 for a high temperature compared to where we should be this time of year, exactly at 62 degrees. And that also came after a pretty cold morning, 24 for a morning low, and obviously that number 14 degrees below your average low of 38 degrees this time of year. But also note, both these average highs and these average lows are a degree warmer than what we did see at the end of last week. We were hovering at 61 and 37, so we are now seeing those averages get steadily warmer. They're going to begin a very slow warm up as we go into the end of February, but once we get into the spring and the summertime months, these numbers will increase a whole lot more drastically on a week by week basis, maybe even 1 or 2 degrees on a week by week basis eventually. So your record high yesterday, 82 degrees back in 1957, 1933. We saw a record low of 18 degrees, which we were not too far off of, 6 degrees above that record low temperature as of yesterday morning, giving you an idea that it was kind of feeling like a tale of two seasons yesterday. Yesterday morning was definitely giving you a blast of old man winter, and then we go into the afternoon where it felt a little bit more spring-like, but still 62 for a high temperature, not necessarily the warmest that we could see. We'll have good news on that front once we get into this afternoon. No rain recorded. It says we're around 3 inches below where we should be at this point in the year. Again, I'm not getting too worried about this because we are going to get into severe weather season eventually. And severe weather season does mean that there are more substantial rainmakers on their way. And that will be over the course of really about one every week at the very least. We could even have 2 or 3 systems pass over the course of a week if we are lucky in terms of needing some rain, but obviously in the form of severe weather, that's what we never like to have, but that's the trade-off that sometimes you have to have down here in the southeast where we have a warm and a humid environment. Sometimes we definitely need our fair share of substantial rain chances, and it does come at the cost of maybe seeing something in the way of some thunderstorms. But sunrise yesterday, 7:24, sunset 6:14 p.m. Sunset going to be very likely around 6:15 as we go into this evening, but the days are going to continue to get longer. So I did want to flash a couple important dates to be on the lookout for. First and foremost, February 14th. No, not because it's Valentine's Day, but February 14th will mark the first time that we're back to 11 hours of daylight. So trying to creep closer and closer back to that 12-hour mark, because that would indicate that finally the hours of daylight are going to be longer than the hours of nighttime. So that's when we really start to get into that more enjoyable time of the year where there's more sunshine. That's when you get into spring and summer, and the more time with sunshine outside obviously just puts you in a little bit of a better mood. So on Valentine's Day, sunrise going to be just before 7:20, 7:18 a.m. to be exact. Then sunset going to be at 6:19 p.m., marking 11 hours and 1 minute of daylight. Then I have highlighted February 27th because this is going to be the first time that we are back to a 6:30 p.m. sunset. Now that's during standard time. Obviously, we are going to be sometime into around 6:30 p.m. once again as we get into the tail end of daylight saving time. But that is going to be maybe a semi-important date if you are just looking out for a little bit of a later sunset, and that's also going to mark near 11 and a half hours of daylight as we go into the second to the last day of the month of February. And then March 8th is the day that you need to go ahead and put on your calendars. A little bit less than exactly a month away until our first time change of 2026 does occur. That is going to be the start of daylight saving time. So what that means is we are going to spring forward. So as you can see, your sunrise time, it continues to get earlier and earlier over the course of the next couple of days and over the course of the next couple of weeks. Well, you can see that it goes all the way back to 7:53 a.m. as we go into March 8th. That means that without this time change, your sunrise would be around 6:53 a.m. So before the 7 a.m. hour, and I'm sure that's something that none of you would like because that's the last thing that you want to see. Maybe that sun peeking through the curtains a little bit before, say, that alarm goes off around 7 a.m. each and every morning for you. But the good news is sunset going to be at 7:37 p.m. So without this time change, the sunset would still be around 6:30. It would be at 6:37 p.m. to be exact. It will be nice to at least be able to enjoy dinner sometime around 6:30 or 7 p.m. and still be able to walk outside and catch that last little glimpse of light before hitting the hay for the night. So 11 hours and 44 minutes of daylight on March 8th. And once again, that's a day to go ahead and mark in your calendars. That's going to be right after we turn the calendar into March, after February does end. And of course, that is going to set up a time where you are going to lose an hour of sleep. But once again, I think it's a welcome trade-off. That's what we always say with the daylight saving time starting and the daylight saving time ending. You'll either get an extra hour of sleep or you're going to get your later sunsets. Just kind of pick your poison about which one is more important to you. But now we go into the month of February so far because it's been an interesting stretch of temperatures to say the least over recently. As we kicked off the first of the month, 41 for a high temperature. Yes, these are high temperatures, not your low temperatures. 54 on Monday, all the way up into the low 60s on Tuesday before we did see a temperature decline for Wednesday and Thursday in the back half of the midweek last week. And then 65 for a high temperature on Friday. Saturday afternoon still felt pretty nice, a high temperature of 60, but that fell just shy of average this time of year. And then yesterday we were right where we should have been for average, marking the first time that we've seen a gray box on this graphic since we have to go all the way back to December. We had 2 days in the month of December where we did see some exactly at average high temperatures, but here's where your tally stands. A couple days into the month, really about a week into the month of February, 5 below average days, 1 normal day, and 2 above average days. And really going at that, one of those below average days this past Saturday at 60 degrees was just below average. So I would say it's been a pretty good balance of some pretty cold air and some pretty substantial warm-ups over the course of the last week or so. But now today is going to mark a stretch of what I think is going to be maybe about 7 to 8, maybe even a longer stretch of days where we will see some red boxes on that calendar graphic. A big warm-up and a few sprinkle chances are going to be present throughout today, but overall I think it's mainly a story of a high temperature of 68 and some mostly sunny skies. So 68 going to be in the neighborhood for around 6 degrees above average for this time of year. In your hour-by-hour warm-up graphic, it does show that we'll be somewhere in the mid-50s as we go into lunchtime. We're already right around the 50-degree mark. That does check out, but I do believe we'll warm up a little bit more and say what we see around 3 into 4 into 5 o'clock. This meteogram topping out around 65 degrees, and I do believe we'll climb into the upper 60s in a select few spots. And then as we approach sunset closer to the 6 p.m. hour, that's when we begin the temperature cool down, but not going to be, say, as substantial as what we did see in between last night and into tonight. So like I mentioned, we will still hold on to some cloud cover in a select few spots, mainly looking like south and southwest central Georgia. And within some of this passing cloud cover, you do have the chance of seeing a light shower, maybe even a sprinkle shower, nothing substantial in the way of rain, and it's very unlikely that most of you do see anything in the way of rain throughout the rest of your Monday. Going into Tuesday, it does look like we have some clouds that try to build back in, but the important note is you do see clearing over to the east. So that's going to lead to a beautiful sunrise as we walk out the door tomorrow, something we didn't have the luxury of seeing as of this morning. And then as we go into the afternoon, really late morning, early afternoon, right around lunchtime, there might be a very small chance of seeing a couple of very brief drizzle showers once again, like we're kind of talking about today, but I have even less confidence in those rain chances than what we're talking about over the course of the rest of today, because we've already seen today's rain chances pop up on your satellite and radar image. I think Tuesday is going to mainly be a story of a light breeze, maybe some occasional passing clouds, but overall a forecast that is mainly dominated by sunshine, and you will see that reciprocated in tomorrow afternoon's high temperature. But as we go into the nighttime hours, it does look like cloud cover is a bit denser and a bit more widespread, and that hangs around into the early morning hours on Wednesday, which is going to be a good thing for your morning low temperatures on Wednesday morning. Again, when you keep that cloud cover in the forecast overnight into the early morning hours, that is going to result in some warmer temperatures. And honestly, it's kind of a rinse and repeat forecast from what FutureView looked like as of last Monday. Remember, we did have our widespread rain chances that moved in as of early on Wednesday morning, and they really crowded the picture for most of Wednesday afternoon. Well, your rain chances, number one, are not looking that widespread for this Wednesday, but the rain chances are moving in at a pretty similar time. Spotty light showers around the early morning hours making your way out the door, maybe tapering off a little bit, but still a couple of sprinkles as you go into around 8 to 9 a.m. But there's a whole lot more widespread rain that is up to the north and the northwest, back up to the north of Birmingham, north of the metro Atlanta area. Those clusters of moisture do try to creep down to the south just a little bit, and maybe areas in north central Georgia do see their fair share of some slightly widespread light and steady rain, but overall we're not even looking at anything in the way of heavy showers associated with this. And it does look like this is driven by a frontal boundary, because as we go throughout the afternoon, starting to see some of these cloudy skies clear, and then eventually all these rain chances are moving down to the south of us, and behind that the cloud cover does continue to break apart as we go into your Wednesday evening, and then we go overnight into early Thursday morning, where it does look like maybe a crystal clear start to the day could be in order. And Thursday is also marking a brief break from rain chances before we head into a weekend that is going to be full of plenty of rain chances. In terms of the breezy conditions, we don't really have those present throughout today. Finally, at long last, it feels like the winds have at least been consistently blowing at around 15 to 20 miles per hour just about each and every day. So we'll take some relief from that as we go throughout today. But then as we go into tomorrow, it does look like maybe the occasional gust up to 15, maybe even close to 20 miles per hour does build back in. And then we keep some breezy conditions in the forecast through not only Wednesday morning, but also Wednesday afternoon, where we will see plenty of passing clouds and some scattered rain chances throughout the day. So I would plan on Wednesday on being the next bit of a messy hair day, if you will, and then hopefully we can get the breeze to subside a little bit by the time we roll into Thursday. But I wouldn't count on it. If a frontal boundary is passing through, we might actually see our fair share of some gusty winds that linger all the way into Thursday. So next 3 days, pretty uneventful forecast. Well, I guess we have seen quieter stretches of weather, but 68 for a high temperature today. If that's not warm enough for you, take a look at that for Tuesday. 74 degrees. This might even be some weather to go, dare I even say, sit out by the pool, do a little bit of tanning in light of these mostly sunny skies. It's going to be an immaculate forecast, and I've elected to not put that 10% chance of rain on Tuesday like I did for Monday, which is really kind of a cover the bases rain chance for today. In reality, that's a lot lower than 10%. It's probably about 3% if we had to give it an exact percentage, but I just wanted to cover the bases, and we only go in increments of 10 for our rain chances that you do see. Then we go into Wednesday, and still a 30% chance of rain. That's not very substantial. It's more substantial than what we have today, what we have for Tuesday, but 30% chance also means a 70% chance that you dodge any rain whatsoever, and I still anticipate a warm up near 70 as we go into the afternoon, because we will start to see some breaks in the cloud cover as we go later into the day on Wednesday. And along with that, remember what I was talking about, the cloud cover building in Tuesday night all the way into early Wednesday morning. That's going to result in some morning low temperatures that might be somewhere in the mid 50s, not even getting close to the 50-degree mark. So it is going to have a noticeable feel to it, maybe even a noticeable humidity that makes things feel a tad bit sticky as you walk outside. Overall, we're still not into that time frame of the calendar year where we are talking about some super swampy humidity that's greeting you out the door. It might just be a noticeably warmer atmosphere as you walk outside, but 55 degrees, especially when you pair it up with some rain. We saw that as of last week. It is still a pretty chilly environment, something that you are going to want at least the rain jacket for, but I don't anticipate you needing anything in the way of layering after the rain does subside as we get into the later hours on Wednesday. So speaking of your afternoon highs, do we actually hold on to these 70s for an extended stretch? Doesn't look to be the case. Your numbers continue to go down as we move towards the weekend. 67 degrees for a high temperature on Thursday, 66 for a high on Friday. But the important note is all of these numbers that you see throughout each day of the work week are going to be above your average of 62 degrees this time of year. So finally, an extended stretch of some warm temperatures. We've had maybe a day or two over recent weeks that have been slightly above average, but haven't really had a consistent stretch of some warmer weather, and it does look like that is also the same thing that we are seeing on your morning low temperatures. Today, this morning, should be the lowest that your temperatures drop for the foreseeable future, really at least the next week in time. We'll have some numbers that do get pretty close, say somewhere in the low 40s. However, 55 on Wednesday, obviously a bit of an outlier in light of that cloud cover overnight into Wednesday morning. And then we go into Thursday and Friday. Looks like we cool down a little bit, well, pretty substantially if you're basing it on 55 on Wednesday. But then we do start to see some slightly above average numbers as we go into Thursday and Friday. But maybe just giving you a little bit more of a forecast that you can continue to sport your favorite quarter zip, maybe even some form of light layering that you have been walking out the door to. So going to be a slightly chilly start to the next couple of mornings, but the afternoons is going to be a forecast that's probably even suitable for some short sleeves that you are going to be wanting to wear as you go out and about. Now let's go into Thursday, where I did tell you it's mainly going to be highlighted by the one day without rain chances before we get into a weekend forecast that is full of rain chances. Now I will go ahead and tell you Friday and Saturday are still very much written in pencil. We have not seen much model agreement whatsoever. We do have more confidence around Sunday, which doesn't make a lot of sense because Sunday is farther out into the future, so you would think normally you guys don't have too much of a good idea about what's going to happen about a week out, but right now we are seeing plenty of signs that make Sunday probably the messiest day that we do have across the course of the next week, and we'll talk about that more in a second. But let's go ahead and go day by day as we go into the weekend ahead. A few spotty shower chances along with some partly cloudy skies could be present throughout the day on Friday, but we also have those chances existing once again on Saturday. But this is Saturday morning. We take a gander over to the west and we already start to see our next weather maker taking shape and sending some pretty widespread rain chances to areas of the southern plains, getting into the Mississippi River Valley, even as far over to the east as northern Georgia. So maybe the metro Atlanta area possibly receiving a couple of scattered showers already as we go into the day on Saturday. But right now, if we go according to this forecast, your forecast in central Georgia is looking predominantly dry. Might be a little bit of a gloomy forecast throughout your Saturday afternoon and evening plans for Valentine's Day, but we'll keep our fingers crossed that's all it's looking like. I would have more confidence in rain chances being greater on Saturday as opposed to what we see on Friday, mainly because number one, we only see one model showing those spotty showers on Friday, and that's the GFS in green. But as we go into Saturday, it looks like the rain chances are more so a part of a widespread weather maker and an organized weather system. So that makes me a little bit more confident we could see the fluctuation of some of these shaded areas of green and blue as we go throughout the day on Saturday. But then going into Sunday, the rain chances on Friday and Saturday really do not compare. Yes, the models are not necessarily agreeing on the timing right now. If we go this European route right here, 10 a.m. on Sunday is looking like a very messy environment for the state of Georgia. But if we go into Sunday afternoon, maybe even a risk of potential severe weather possibly as we go into the day on Sunday. So whatever scenario does end up playing out, obviously the timing of this rain moving in, whether it's the afternoon, whether it's the early morning hours, that's going to be what we really use to pick apart the possible severe weather risk associated with this. But overall, we have not been outlined in anything, and as I just told you, there's not a lot of model agreement about the timing of this specifically as of right now. The one thing I can tell you for certain, Sunday is not going to be a day that you want to have any outdoor plans, so that's where we do have the most confidence in any rain chance across your 7-day forecast. That is going to come at the end of the weekend, and hopefully that's going to be all it is. Maybe a few spotty showers and light showers throughout Friday and Saturday, but you're still able to get those Valentine's Day plans in. But as you go into Sunday, I would want to refrain from making any dinner plans unless you want to be venturing out and about in central Georgia with widespread rain in the forecast and having to bring the rain gear with all of the nice outfits that you are maybe wearing out to a nice dinner. But then we go into midnight where rain chances are beginning to move out of the picture. It's all over to the east by then. And then we settle into your Monday morning and afternoon where maybe some wraparound moisture does try to creep into the picture for a few spotty light showers, but overall those rain chances not looking too impressive. Let's talk about how much rain we are expecting, because that is also something we know for certain so far. We can see maybe about a tenth to about a quarter of an inch in some select few spots as we go throughout Wednesday into Thursday. But then the first day of the weekend, we might be adding on a little bit more rain according to the GFS model. Still not really seeing any totals above the quarter-inch mark until we get all the way through Sunday. Then we start to see some totals skyrocket up to around 1 to maybe 1.5 inches of rain in a select few spots. Again, this isn't the best resolution according to the GFS model, and we can compare it to what we see from the Euro, which is following the same kind of idea over the course of Wednesday and Thursday, maybe about 1/10 of an inch or 2/10 of an inch of rain throughout that midweek rain chance at about 30%. Then we go all the way through your Saturday, really not adding much rain throughout Friday and Saturday, so it does look like we're not seeing much in the way of rain for the first part of the weekend, first 2 days of the weekend according to the Euro, but then we start to add on a bit more widespread rain in nature, even some totals close to around an inch at the very most according to this European model. So the severe weather chances, the coverage of rain right now, still a bit up in the air. The one thing that I want you to know is Saturday going to have a better rain chance than Friday, and Sunday going to have a better chance than both Saturday and Friday. So you will have increasing rain chances day by day that we go across the course of this weekend. Still forecasting each and every day to be above average, but not quite as warm as what we see for tomorrow and into Wednesday. And then as we go into Sunday, one thing does look for certain. It is going to be some beneficial and some substantial rainfall, so that will continue to help us out with some of those drought conditions I showed you at the top of this forecast. So that's where things stand as of right now. We'll be back once again with another update tomorrow at 11 a.m.